Hey, I'm Matt Schell, aka Matt Mirrorfish, aka Matto, and welcome back to Thousand Ant. It's been a little quiet on the channel for a while here. I'm going to talk about what we've been actually working on behind the scenes and explain our new project and kind of where we're going with this channel. So let's get started. So first of all, welcome back. If you've been following the channel and subscribed, thank you. And you may have noticed we haven't uploaded for about 5 months. We got up to a point, as I said in some of my previous videos, where we kind of ran out of money on the space game, got stuck, we had to go do some client work. But one of the other things that we've been experimenting with kind of secretly is doing some projects in the NFT and Web3 space. So as I said in a previous video, I understand that this is a polarizing topic. I understand that probably a lot of the audience of this channel has already decided that they hate NFTs. That's basically fine. If this is your moment to unsubscribe, I totally get it. I'm ready for the Rotten Tomatoes to come flying in the comments. But we kind of went and did some experimentation a little bit quietly because I wasn't sure it was something we really wanted to do or keep doing, or even if it was something I wanted to defend. I still don't want to defend it, but it is something that we're doing. It's become a part of our business. It's become a part of my own creative, artistic output. So I think actually the best way that I can give you to think about the NFT space, I've been trying to think of a way to kind of explain this to indie developers that makes sense. And I think describing it as a kind of a Wild West frontier town, where you have your sort of gamblers, criminals, various mentally unwell people, but also some risk-taking, adventurous, and very interesting and brilliant people as well. That's kind of the best description I can come up with. And I think that your reaction to that is a good indicator of whether this is something that you might like being involved in, right? For me, I really like the chaos, right? I think the chaos is interesting. I like the kind of freedom and anarchic frontier nature of it, but a lot of people are going to kind of hear all that and be like, get me out of here. And that, I think, would be an appropriate response, right? So this kind of image serves as a kind of a litmus test, and then on the other side of it, there's a lot of people talking about, oh, it's a scam, it's unethical, and so on. My position is, if consenting adults want to make, in my case, artworks, and other people want to buy those and they feel happy afterwards and they don't feel taken advantage of, then, what we do in our wallets is kind of our private business. And if we're both enjoying it, then I don't see anything wrong with it. So now it's been a year. We've actually done 2 NFT projects, and I have some experience with the people in the space, with the kind of creative medium, and as a way to make money. I have been able to, through being a part of it, find people and communities that I really like and that I find really inspiring. And we've been able to create work for those people as an audience. And it's been a good experience, actually. So I think more than any kind of abstract overview or kind of philosophical arguments, I can just share my story of my actual experience and what me and the team actually did in this space over the past year. And then you can kind of take it or leave it, whether you think that's cool or not cool or whatever. These are things that actually happen, not kind of like opinions. So a bit more than a year ago, an artist who we had collaborated with on client projects approached me and Tom, my partner, and asked for help in launching their own NFT project. And at the time, I wasn't really paying attention to NFTs at all. But when this request came in, I decided to take some time and follow up and educate myself. So I had actually been aware of NFTs from 5 years ago with the initial emergence of CryptoKitties. And funnily enough, at the time, I thought, oh, this could be a really cool thing for games, for kind of collectible games, trading card games, things like that. And I was actually pretty inspired by it at the time. This would have been 2017. When I started to pay attention to NFTs again about a year ago, this was a moment of max hype and hysteria, and a bunch of silly stuff was going on. So ridiculous projects were dropping and selling out and raising tons of money. And as I followed along and pretty quickly learned, Most of what was going on was basically trash. But as I was exploring and trying to understand the space and understand, kind of the art culture around it, the market opportunity, there was a new project that came out that was clearly very different, which was called Loot. So Loot was obviously not a cash grab since it was released for free, and it had a very different aesthetic, ethos, and approach. In short, it was a set of white text on black background NFTs that served as kind of a list of minimalist equipment inventory for some kind of a role-playing game, with the invitation to use them however you wanted and a totally permissive sort of Creative Commons Zero style license. The idea was to create a kind of open source game object primitive that could interoperate with other open source items via the Ethereum virtual machine. So some of the data was stored on chain on Ethereum. That way you could kind of connect to these objects and use them in other games in this kind of open and interoperable way. Obviously, as a very prototype, proof of concept, simple and basic thing, but it was a kind of a provocation and an idea, and it caught my attention and it caught a lot of other people's attention. Having spent time in games, I had always kind of wondered why the open source culture had never really taken hold there. And so I thought this was a really interesting kind of gesture towards that. And so I decided to get involved. It felt experimental, open-ended, and I ended up meeting a lot of really cool people in various Discords who were into this weird set of open source, collaborative, world-building, role-playing game ideas. And I spent some time there, made some friendships, and contributed in a small way to one project called Crypts and Caverns, which is an open source dungeon generator on Ethereum created by a guy named Threepwave, who I became friends with. Then, in around December of 2021, I became aware of another project called Terraforms by a studio called Math Castles. This project was a generative land art project that was a large-scale, procedurally generated 2D and 3D world rendered as a kind of animated ASCII art. If you know me and my interests, you won't be that surprised to hear that I found this really cool, and so I got involved in their Discord, collected some of the artworks myself, and found in this new community a group of people who really shared many of my values, aesthetics, and creative interests, especially one of the artists behind the project who goes by the name 113. I did all of this under a new anonymous pseudonym calling myself Matto. So it was a new Twitter account, Discord account, and I didn't reveal really anything about my real identity or my background. One dimension of the Web3 world that I actually find interesting and enjoyable is since everyone is pretending to be cartoons and pixelated characters, there's this real culture of anonymity, and you can show up as an anonymous person and build a reputation for yourself via your contributions, completely divorced from any other identity. During this entire process, I was documenting some of my learning and understanding via a separate Matto YouTube channel, and I'll link that in the description so you can watch some of those videos if you're interested. Getting involved with the Terraforms community, I made a real-time 3D animation called The Long View, which visualized the metastructure of the Terraforms land art, which is called the Hypercastle. I don't want to turn this video into a Terraforms explainer, so I'll put a link to the video essay I did on my Matto channel for that purpose. But I made the long view over the Christmas vacation, just kind of as a fun personal project. But once it was done, I wanted to spend more time building real-time 3D and Unity stuff around visualizing the Terraforms data. And because our team is independent and I knew I just can't work on weird stuff for free, I tried to figure out how to fund this work. And talking to other Terraform fans and collectors, we circled around doing a kind of a crypto fundraise via a platform called Juicebox, forming a DAO or decentralized autonomous organization, or various other kind of organizing and fundraising models. And I realized that actually what I wanted to do was pretty straightforward, which was to bring the Terraforms data into Unity, make it explorable in real time, and open source all that code as a kind of SDK for Terraforms. I decided to launch an NFT project as a kind of Kickstarter alternative. So we made a proposal for what we wanted to build and set our goal of raising 100 Ether, which at the time had a market value of around 250,000 US dollars. The goal was to pay our team to build this software and then to open source it. There are actually a number of devlogs on my other channel about that project, so I won't go too far into detail, but in short, the whole thing kind of worked. We raised the money, we built and released the SDK and Hypercastle Explorer application, and it was, from my perspective, but also I think for the wider Terraforms community, a cool experience. A few months later, I got access to the Midjourney beta, and I had wanted to do a pure art project that explored combining the instructions as art, conceptual art of Sol LeWitt with some kind of generative project. As I kind of did a little more research, I learned that there had been another number of artists who had kind of explored those themes already, doing generative art kind of drawn from Sol LeWitt. But now that Midjourney arrived, I thought, this is a kind of a cool way to approach this. The project ended up turning into a kind of a weird experimental narrative about robots from the future, and we put it out this summer, and this time we released a collection of 512 images as collectibles, and we're able to sell those out. And at this point, we've now been able to raise around 130 ETH from the NFT market, and that money has become a bigger part of our business. And importantly, we've done it doing weird art projects that I genuinely enjoy doing for an audience that really appreciates and enjoys them. So all told, we currently have around 500 people who own a piece from one of the two NFT collections. Many people have bought multiple pieces. But this is an interesting inversion of the video game business model in paid premium games, where you sell a $10 game to lots of people in an attempt to cover the budget, or in free-to-play, where you have millions of free players and a tiny group of those people who subsidize everyone else via microtransactions or similar. Instead, here we have a small group of people we communicate and transact with directly, and that sustains us. So obviously this is turning into a long video. Suffice to say, we've kind of decided to bring these two streams of what we're doing together, our process of building indie games, experimenting in that medium and documenting it here on the channel, and then our process of experimenting with the NFT medium, trying it as a business model, being in that community and finding out what it's like. We're bringing them together in a new project called Night Run. So Night Run, I'm presenting as a kind of a whole conceptual artwork, which includes a video game, an NFT collection, and these videos and documentation of talking about it. So on the channel going forward, we're gonna get back to making devlogs. I'm gonna be making more talking videos, but we're now gonna be documenting this new project, Night Run, which brings together conceptual art, NFTs, video game development. Hopefully that's gonna be something interesting for some folks who don't wanna take the ride. I totally understand if you wanna exit. And if you wanna offer your critiques and thoughts and so on in the comments, I'm definitely here to discuss. And I'm not really trying to stand up and be like, this is the way for everybody, this is the future, right? That's definitely not my position. But at the same time, I don't think it's something that should be ignored or that is not worth experimenting with. And actually my experiments so far, I've really enjoyed, right? So we're gonna keep going. And I think it's worthwhile to kind of bring this back to the indie dev community to say, hey, this is what we've been doing. Maybe you learn something, maybe you find it interesting, right? So as always, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back with a longer video, not a longer video, this is a longer video. We'll be back with another video about Night Run, kind of explaining in more detail what it is. That'll be the next video on the channel. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.